Hello everyone, this is your host Casual Lichess, and this is part 2 of the speedrun to 2600 on lichess. So first game against Strizzy Booba. Okay, so I'm going to open up with the Najdorf defense, hoping for a very tactical and exciting game. So going for, okay, so bishop g5, e6. So here I'm just going to develop and hope for a kingside attack. Queenside, attacking the king. Just developing here, 97. Here, I think I'm going to go for the attack, b5. Let's see what he does. So he took, wow. Okay, if I take, then it's bad for white. Bad for black, so I castled. So there was a game where Wei Yi was playing white, the Chinese Grandmaster, against Alexei Shirov. And Wei Yi won with the white pieces in a similar position. So I'm going to avoid that by castling, and even though I lose a pawn, maybe I can compensate the pawn with the bishop pair advantage or with the open files on the queen side to attack the king. Okay, so knight c6, threatening knight takes e7. So here, if I take the bishop, he takes my knight, bishop, and then he has queen d6. So here, I'm just going to retreat my bishop. Yeah, so the idea here is if knight takes d8 bishop, then I take the bishop back, and then his knight is trapped on d8. And I'm forcing him to think up of a solution. So he plays bishop a4, retreating the bishop. Okay, I go knight c5, continuing the pressure on the a4 bishop. Okay, so he took. Now I'm, what should I do here? So if I take the bishop, takes, and then takes. Okay, so I'm just going to take the knight right away. Because here, okay, so he's threatening bishop d8 if I retreat the knight. And if d takes, then queen d8. Very nice move, e5. Okay, now I got to think of a way to counterattack. This is already looking very bad for my position. I think here I should go attack the bishop on a4, so d5. So hoping to make something happen, even though I'm already down a pawn and down a knight as well. Okay, so d4, if I move my bishop, the next move, I'm attacking the knight and the bishop on a4 here. So, okay, he retreats. Now I'm going to protect my rook with bishop b7. See what he does. He should better retreat the knight, but then I have d3 coming for next move. So this is looking very interesting. Okay, he took, so he's now up 2 pawns. But then I think if I take the knight with my pawn, then I think this is I win the material back because takes, and if bishop takes d8, then pawn takes queen. So he took with the queen. I take, he takes, I take the g7 pawn. Now the material's even, so I have some chances of winning the game actually, because this is very double-edged, and even though white is still up a lot of material, his king is very dangerous compared to my king, which his dark square bishop cannot have access to. Okay, so here bishop d5. So the idea here is if bishop d5, then I've gone knight a4, threatening knight c3 check ideas, and with the b2 pawn, maybe I can make some tactics happen. And also I can threaten play h6 later to capture the d8 rook. So he plays c4 here. So I think if I just retreat my bishop, then I don't have any attack. So I'm just going to make something happen and try to stir the position into unclear ground. So bishop takes c4 here, takes knight a4. So threatening to play knight c3 check and potentially checkmate. Because even though white has a lot of pieces, his king is very unprotected from the dark squares. And his dark square bishop is not doing much. Okay, check. Takes, and then queen e5. Not taking the rook directly, because then I would be just down material. Now I'm threatening checkmate with knight a4, queen b2. So now he blocks. Okay, I'm going to go knight b5 using the pin. Okay, here I could check, but then he can block. So my goal here is to checkmate. So queen c5, threatening to take the d4 rook and to checkmate. Okay, he didn't see it, so check. Now if king b1, then the a3 is checkmate. So good game. That was not really clean, but a win is a win. Okay, next game, rematch. I play d4. So here I'm going to go for another very classical, very sharp opening. The Nimzo setup with trading off the bishop pair and going for an early attack in the middle game. So the idea here is that I want to capture the center with f3 supporting the e pawn. Hopefully capture e4 with bishop d3. That's the long-term goal. So knight e2 just developing. Okay, so he's threatening to take my c4 pawn. Takes. Castle, rook e8, knight g3. So here I'm still focusing on playing e4 here. So he stops that by playing c5. So now I need to move my bishop to protect the d4 pawn. So now I go rook e1, protecting e3 pawn, and then moving my bishop is now okay, because before, if I move my bishop, then the e3 pawn is unprotected. Now I can go e4 after bishop b2. Okay, so bishop e6, bishop b2. And here I protect the d4 pawn and hopefully push e4 now. So e4. So now my setup is ready. I can push e4 and have an attack on the king side. Because now my rook, my bishop, and my knight is all protecting this e4 pawn. And I have this very strong bishop pair that can control these long diagonals and hopefully have an attack going on later on in the game. So bishop c4, trying to trade off my bishop pair, very interesting. Not going to happen. Bishop c2, rook d8. Now queen f3 here. So avoiding the pin and going for some battery ideas with the queen and the light square bishop. So trading again, not going to trade. Knight c4. Okay, here I'm not going to trade again. Bishop c1. Even though these are very passive moves, bishop c1 allows white to go bishop takes h6. And if c takes d4, queen b3 here. So my pawn on d4 is not really unprotected. And bishop h6 allows pawn takes, then queen takes f6 with the free pawn. And it wrecks black's defense here. So let's see what he does to counter all these threats. I also have knight f5, knight g7 ideas coming. Okay, so queen c6 protects the f6 knight. And here I think I should just try to solidify my center more and then later go for an attack. But if I play d5 here, he has the threat of knight takes d5 with the pin on the e1 rook. So I think I'm going to try to avoid that pin by playing rook f1. And then without the pin, I can use my rook into the kingside attack and play d5, because if d5, knight d5, I have queen f7, and also if knight d5, because my rook is not on e1, I can capture the d5 knight. So takes. I still have this queen takes b3 idea. Okay, so bishop a4 retreating. Here now I can play d5 because the rook is protected on f1. Okay, so here queen c5 check, king h1, and now I'm ready for the bishop on c1 to utilize the open dark square files, which black cannot protect because black doesn't have a dark square bishop. So white is looking very well here. Two centralized pawns, pieces are well protected, well coordinated. And the only thing stopping me from winning the game is the strong connectedness of the black pieces. So I need to slowly undermine, trying to untangle black's strong fortification. So rook d1, just retreating, rook a2 here, bring another piece into the attack, and also avoiding queen takes a1. So knight attacks queen. Here, just trade queens. Because, yeah, even though I have some kingside attacking ideas, he just has too many pieces. And my strong pawns, connected pass pawns on e4 and d5, well, not really connected, but these strong pawns, the strong pass pawn on d5 will certainly be an asset in the endgame. So here, just bishop d4, knight h5, putting pressure on the open file here, half open g file. And here, knight f6, no. I don't think knight f6 works. Knight takes, bishop takes, and black has rook f8. So going for f4, going for the safer route, trying to still use the d5 pawn as my connected point of attack, and rook e1, just protecting the center and going for the attack in the center. So now I have connected pass pawns, knight check, bishop check, and he ran out of time. Good game. And even if he didn't, after bishop takes e6, white is much better and probably winning. So rematch. Okay, he goes for c4, not going for the Sicilian once again. He should have, because he got a pretty good position in the first game. So going for this very, very ironically, a reversed Sicilian now, with white having up a tempo. That is the point of the English opening, and he's going for this Sicilian dragon reversed setup. And I'm just going to develop my pieces and now capture the knight to try to have white to have doubled pawns and create weaknesses in the center for white, similar to the last game. Okay, so knight d4 here, trying to double up my pawns if I don't trade. And if I trade, then he has these strong pawns in the center. So I play d5. Even though this untangles the double pawns, I think with d5, I open up the d file and open up the file for my bishop, so I can develop properly. So that is a worthy trade, because now white is kind of slow in development, and the advantage he has is the bishop pair, but not many files to use the bishop. So that is his problem, and I'm going to use my rapid development to try to stop white's advances. So rook d8, putting pressure on the d pawn, just developing. Okay, here I don't really have a clear target to attack. D pawn is weak, but okay, so I go queen a6, attacking e2. I still want to put pressure on the center, so rook d7. And here planning to double up my rooks by playing rook d8. Okay, so d4, very nice move. Okay, so if I take, then he has bishop b7 attacking both my queen and the rook. And this is very troublesome. So I think I slipped that. I should have done rook b8 in the last move to prevent this d4. So now white gets rid of his weakness, but then again, the e4 pawn is now untouchable and stops the bishop. So I go rook b8 here, just trying to have another plan, because attacking on the center now doesn't work. So I'm going to go queen e6, trying to attack the king side where I have 3 pieces as opposed to white's 1 piece. So going for the checkmate right away, attempting to do queen and knight checkmate on the h2 square, which is undefended. Okay, so now I kind of pressured white to have all his pieces on the queen side, which doesn't do anything. But now my pieces have these advantageous spots in the king side. Okay, so now my rook on b8 isn't doing anything, so probably going rook e8 soon. But first, b6, protecting the a7 pawn. I mean, I want to go for the attack, but at the same time, don't want to mess up the placement of my pieces. So g4, queen g5. Now white is forced to destroy his own structure for some counterattack. But now my pieces are very well connected. Pressure on the e file, knight h5, knight f4 coming, and this is looking very, very nice for me and very bad for white. And white's only counterattacking idea here is the pressure on g7. So f4 takes, rook f1, queen back. So he tried to exploit that by creating this open file. Okay, so now if I play h5, which I'm planning to, he can play rook f6, and pawn takes, rook takes, queen g5. Removing the rook, he threatens queen h8 checkmate. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go knight g4 here. Just going for the attack right away. And now because my queen protects the g7 pawn, the battery isn't really effective. So now I'm going to go f6. Just protecting the g7 pawn, and also have a square for my rooks to come into the game. Rook e5 coming, and rook h5 coming. Okay, so attacking my queen, queen check, king g1, rook e5 now. Threatening rook g5 check. Okay, rook f2, trying to guard the g2 square. I'm just going to check anyways. Block, takes, and then queen e2, free pawn. Even though I'm down a piece, I'm now up 4 pawns. So check, check, just shuffling, check, takes the pawn. Okay, takes, g6. Here, my pass pawn on the e file is very nice. His d5 pawn is also loose, so e3, threatening to take the rook and take the pawn with check. Let's see what he does. Now I'm also threatening queen c2, queen b2. Okay, d6, just take, and if d7, then f1, checkmate. Check with the queen. Queen g4. So, and then rook f8. Now pinning the queen, and I think he resigns. Okay, yeah, he resigns. And now, this is it. And hopefully see you guys for the next